This is the Ezra podcast. And we're back with the boxing episode of the podcast. We didn't do one last week. And you know what? It was a little bit disappointing that I didn't do it. I got to be honest with you, because I did see something that I thought like, oh, there's something here to definitely talk about. Right? There's definitely something. There's something we can maybe it's a little more interesting than what people were giving off, because it's supposed to be a down week. And I was saying that it was a down week for boxing last week. And then what happens? Bradis loses to Opateye, and a massive upset. Probably I think it's the biggest upset of the year so far. And what was supposed to be the slowest week for boxing produces a humongous story, right? So that's how boxing's been this year. That's how it's been this year. We really haven't had any really slow weeks. And the week we thought was going to be slow produces a great story, right? Where Opateye now might possibly be the best cruiserweight in the world, because he beat the guy that I think everybody pretty much had as number one cruiserweight in the world. He beats him. Close fight. I thought very competitive fight. I'll break it down a little bit more going in a few minutes, but also want to talk about Joe Joyce victory over Hammer. And what I say about Hammer is that Hammer has the ability to survive. I don't think he's gonna ever go for. I never thought he was gonna go for a win in that fight. He has the ability to survive. He has the ability to make fights ugly and then make them boring, but to get the rounds in. Joe Joyce wasn't having that. Joe Joyce was just pounding away, going inside, killing him to the body, just forward pressure, taking shots when he had to. You know, that I told you, Joe Joyce's best ability is his chin. It's his number one quality is his chin. And he has a hard jab, and all his shots hurt. And he gets Hammer out of there. He did exactly what he was supposed to do. That's exactly how he was supposed to look. And the talks of him versus Fury, but I don't really buy into that. We'll see how it goes going forward. But Joe Joyce, as I always thought, is a legit threat to everyone in the heavyweight division. He only furthered that proof. But let's get to the Bradis Opateye fight. Bradis, I'm going to be honest, he didn't have it that night. And the comparison that I have for this fight is Tarver Jones #1. I'm not saying that that's exactly like the styles that was fought or anything like that, but the reason why I compare it to that fight is because Roy Jones showed cracks, right? He showed that it slowly it was starting to fall apart for him. It was that he was no longer in his prime anymore, and it was he kind of had to gut that performance out, and he kind of had to do things that he never really had to do before, like going after Tarver, forcing a fight at times and stuff like that. And at some points where Tarver was kind of like outbox him at points in the first fight. And in this fight, Bradis he wasn't going to win this fight on skill. He was going to win this fight on his ability. He kind of had to just gut this performance out, and he had to use his willpower. He had to outwork Opateye, and he had to outwork him in the fight, and he had to, force a fight. And then the first half, like, he gets outboxed. It's clear as day he gets outboxed. And then what he starts doing, and he just stops waiting. He just puts in his head that I can't wait for this guy. I got to force something happen. I can't try to play this game with him. I just got to force whatever I have today. I got to force that in this fight. And that's what he does. And he's pretty effective in the second half of it. But just doesn't seem like he has the timing, speed, all those things, rhythm that he, had in previous fights that showed him at such a top level. I don't think he really had that. I think this is where the signs that that's probably going to slip away. In boxing, you could get old overnight, and that's kind of what I was seeing from that. Not taking away from Opataye's win, that's still a huge win, but I'm just saying that's what I was seeing. And if they rematch, I don't think it looks any different. I think he's still gonna have to gut it out. He's still gonna have to show willpower, and let's see if Opataye can have a better cardio in the second half of the fight, because his cardio really fell off. Right, he boxed very well in the beginning, but to keep up that performance that he was doing, it really fell off in the second half of the fight. So I think there's a rematch going to happen. It only makes the most sense to do that in that fight for both guys, honestly. But I wouldn't count on Bradis looking like Bradis of old. I think I kind of looking like old Bradis, if that makes sense. And I imagine he's going to get outboxed and just see if he can force the issue. And if in his mind, he understands that he's got to force the issue in the fight earlier on. But massive upset, biggest upset of the year so far. Like I said, and just shook up the whole cruiserweight division, just like that. Shook up the whole cruiserweight division. I was going to do a podcast on it. I saw something. I was like, oh, Opateye is a little better than what I was thinking, right? He's a little better. But I watched him again. I started breaking him down, and I was like, he doesn't have enough to beat Bradis, right? The Bradis that I was breaking down and all the fights where he looked so good, I was like, he's just not going to have enough. That wasn't the Bradis that, that wasn't a youthful Bradis. That wasn't a sharp Bradis. And that's all Obatai needed to surpass him. That's what, like, the skill I saw in the boxing I saw, like the ability that he has. That's all he needed, was just a little bit of slippage, and that's what happened. And let's just see, if he can withstand the willpower. If you look at Roy Jones, I keep saying John Jones, Roy Jones versus Tarver in the second fight, that's where Tarver puts him to sleep, right? Like where it really fell off the tracks, right? Really got derailed. Maybe that's what it looks like for Bradis, or maybe he's more accepting of what his body can physically do, and he goes in there with that knowledge and is able to force the fight that he needs to win the fight. That's an interesting thing going into the storyline for the rematch. Can't wait to see it. Can't wait to see how it all plays out. Now let's get into this weekend's fight, and we have a very good card. The card kind of going under the radar. We have Mark Magsayo versus Ray Vargas, and this is for a bout at featherweight. And let me pull up the poster here real quick. Bam. And we have Magsayo versus Vargas. Magsayo coming off a humongous win in his career, him beating Gary Russell in a fight where Gary Russell, injures his arm and he kind of fights one-handed. And I thought it was a very close fight. I thought Gary Russell did enough to get a draw. I was okay with Magsayo winning because he started working more towards the end of the fight. In the middle, it kind of gets gun shy when it's clear Gary Russell only has one arm. He can only punch one hand. He keeps moving towards the hand where Gary Russell can punch. It's a very confusing performance. I know it's his biggest win, but there's a lot. To me, it had like a lot more questions than it did answers at the end of it about Magsayo. Now, Ray Vargas, who's been effective in the lower weight, the one weight lower than the weight he's at in this fight. But he's moving up. He's never lost. He's can move around. He can punch at range. He's an unorthodox fighter. I don't like to throw that around so much. Like, everybody applies their own style and stuff, but he is an unorthodox fighter. He moves around. A lot of times he punches the body from like a distance. That's something you see a lot. Combination punch to the body from distance. He's going to rely on his legs. Like, that's his defense, is his legs. He doesn't look to get he doesn't get touched much. That's kind of his game. He's like hit, move, and his constant movement, constant action. And he frustrates guys with the way he fights. With Magsayo, he has the power, he has the explosion. He kind of has to reset though. Like, his legs aren't consistent. You see a lot of things where he has like a lot of twitches too. He has a lot of twitches. He has a lot of resets. He has to hit his gloves together. Has to get a little bounce in, and then he could get going. He has to recharge. And against a guy like Vargas, that's kind of a dilemma, because Vargas is constantly on the move. So it's constantly like you're playing catch up, and then you constantly have to recharge, get into position. And Vargas doesn't stay in a position often. Now, the opening for Magsayo is he has a big left hook, humongous left hook, and he can double it or triple it. He's very good once he gets it going and explosive with it. Vargas, like I said, punches the body from a distance. It's a habit he does. I think it's just a part of his game. I would think if you're training him for this fight, that you would say, hey, we're probably not going to use that in this fight, because that's going to give Magsayo a big opportunity for his left hook. But I don't know if Vargas can get away from the things that he does. He's the kind of guy that I think he has a style, and that's a style that's going to bring to the table. If he goes to the body with those shots at a range like that, it's going to give Magsayo a chance for that left hook, and he could really put Vargas to sleep. I mean, he has that kind of explosion, that kind of power, and Vargas is new to this weight class. He had only one fight at this weight class, 126 pounds. I think Vargas has every advantage in the book in this fight. I think he's got the footwork. I think he's got the rhythm. He's going to have the reach. He's going to, he might not have, like, if they measure just one punch at a time, right? Magsayo, I think, would beat him with speed. But a continuous flow of punches and the way Vargas is able to be more balanced and use his legs, I think that his speed and combinations is better than Magsayo. I think Magsayo has like 1-2 shots. And if it's from the same hand, like if he's throwing double left hand, right, left hooks, it's pretty good speed. He's able to get it off pretty quick. But when he starts having to use both hands for his combinations, it definitely slows down, or it definitely just comes to a stop. I'll give Vargas that advantage on that. I think if you told me this is going to go to decision, Vargas' chin's going to hold up, I'm going to pick Vargas to outwork Magsayo and just frustrate him, not really let him ever get going in his offense. Now, if we're going to say this fight's going to be due to stop, is going to be a stoppage, I'll pick Magsayo by a knockout, left hook. And I think that's for Vargas punching too far away to the body. And it's not like Vargas, his guard is like amazing. You know what I mean? It's a lot of like just natural reflexes is what he's counting on. This is really, to me, a pick 'em fight. I don't feel 100% confident going either way with a picking a winner here. A lot of times I feel pretty confident, like, oh, it's going to look like this. It's going to be a tough fight. I think Vargas is going to outwork him. I think he's going to move around a lot. I think Magsayo's going to, you'll see Magsayo get frustrated. You'll see Magsayo have dips in action, right? He's not going to be the most active fighter, but I think that he's always going to have that left hook there. He's always going to be able to change the fight with one punch, and Vargas is going to give him a lot of those openings. So I think it's going to be Vargas walking a tightrope the whole fight. I'm going to take Vargas by decision. Like I said, I don't feel 100% confident for it because I just see the opening there when he goes to the body at too far range. Then Magsayo could just knock his head off his shoulders, right? Put his head in the third row. That's the key part to watching this fight. To see if they could get Magsayo to get a little more active too, not take those lows, not be so patient, because he's a very patient guy. He's very calm in the ring. These are two guys that are going to be extremely calm in the ring, but at points he's got to pick it up, and he can't reset and then wait for his opportunity. He's got to get it going and pick it up soon. I think that using maybe some body shots in this fight, look to slow down Vargas, to add something so Vargas you could kind of get him in more a reachable range, right? His feet aren't getting him completely out of range, right? You got to slow him down. Put some like Teddy Atlas says, some water in the basement. Like I said, I'm gonna go Vargas decision in this fight, but I think there's gonna be some scary moments for him, and there's gonna be maybe some close calls, or maybe he gets caught and he's gonna have to survive at points. I think it's a very good fight. Very interested in this fight. On the undercard, co-main event, Brandon Figueroa versus Carlos Castro, and I think this is an excellent fight. This fight could steal the night, and I think that going into it, I think people are assuming that Brandon Figueroa is going to go in there and win this fight. This is like his welcome to 126, and the winner of this fight is basically in a position to face the winner of the Mark Magsayo Ray Vargas fight. So that's another interesting thing to pay attention to a storyline. But Brandon Figueroa, who just fought Stephen Fulton, beat Neary in 122, was in a close fight with Stephen Fulton, who I think is, how I feel about Stephen Fulton. I think he's one of the best fighters in the world. So if this guy would have had a close fight with him, obviously he's a very good fighter. Now, the advantages that Figueroa had that maybe made his fight with Stephen Fulton such a close fight, such a competitive fight, is that he was a giant at 122 pounds. Now we call him weight bully, call whatever you want. He was a big guy at 122. And similar to his brother, Omar Figueroa, when he was in the lower weight classes, he could make the weight. His power was dominant. His size was dominant. His style was dominant in those weight classes because he could get a lot of power from shots that he didn't have to put a lot of energy to. And he had a high work rate and he could take big shots. So his style was effective. That's what Brandon Figueroa had at 122. Now we're going to see if he's going to fall into what his brother did as he moved up. He wasn't as effective. He wasn't taking the shots anymore, and his power wasn't there anymore. We're going to see what Brandon Figueroa's power is against Carlos Castro. Carlos Castro is a damn good fighter. He is. He's a damn good fighter. Now, did he come off loss in Neary? Yes. Did he have good moments in that fight? I did. I did think he had some good moments in that fight. I had Neary winning, but he had some good moments in that fight. He's had some very good performances. He's also more comfortable in the weight at 126. He's familiar with it. He has experience with it. He's also not I don't think undersized, right? I think Brandon Figueroa is going to face a guy that's his size. He's not going to be able to outmuscle him. He's not going to, his physical, his physicalness is not, I don't think it's going to break Carlos Castro. Now, what I think he could do is outwork Carlos Castro. I think that Carlos Castro sometimes waits too often. I don't think that he works enough in the mid range, and he allows guys to get in on him. But when he is working long range, he's pretty damn good. He does have the ability to fight on the inside as well. I don't think he's going to be able to compete with Brandon Figueroa as far as if they're both working on the inside. Brandon Figueroa is going to outwork him. He's going to outland him. But can Carlos Castro keep him on the outside? Can he use his feet, his balance to keep Brandon Figueroa on the outside? I think Brandon Figueroa can run into a lot of struggles in this fight. And I think this is going to be a drag-out fight. I think it's going to be very close. I'll take Brandon Figueroa just because Carlos Castro has made 122 before. He's not the biggest 126 guy. He also sometimes allows guys to get in the range and get broken down,